From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to the 25th season and this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, the Alt-N crisis in Mead. Joining us to talk more about it are Ellie Rogan. Dr. Rogan is a department chair in the College of Public Health at UNMC. She currently leads the Alt-N research team. Next to her is Judy Woosmart, a member of that team and UNL assistant professor. Dr. Woosmart sounded the alarm on the hazardous waste site. And finally, joining us via Zoom, Janice Malhoff, a retired Army colonel and career nurse. She lives 20 miles downstream from the facility in Ashland, Nebraska. Thank you all so much for being here and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You bet. Ellie, I want to start with you. Help us set the stage a little bit. What is the purpose of an ethanol plant?
The purpose of an ethanol plant is to extract ethanol from typically corn, and then that ethanol is used as an additive to gasoline for cars and trucks.
Okay. How many plants do we have in Nebraska?
We have 24 ethanol plants in Nebraska. 19 of them are in the eastern half of the state and 5 are in the western half of the state. I think that's because almost all the corn is grown in Nebraska is grown in the eastern half of the state.
Okay, now explain how an ethanol plant should operate.
Well, so typically you put in the corn and you extract it with a lot of pressure, and this takes a lot of water, and you get left the solid from the corn. And that's known as, well, it can be known, if you were using other kinds of things, it would be known as distiller's grains. But anyway, you have this dry residue known as wet cake, and then you also have a lot of wastewater. The wet cake is actually a very good source of nutrition, and it can be used it can either be fed to cattle as a food supplement, or it can be spread on fields to use it as fertilizer. And the wastewater typically can be used by farmers to irrigate their crops.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to Janice now, who again joins us via Zoom. And Janice, I want to say that was the case in Mead, Nebraska until it wasn't, right? And before we talk about that, for the viewers who've not been to Mead or that area around Mead, talk about life in a village of 600 people.
Okay, so it's really a community, and it's built around agriculture. You know, when you drive into Mead, the first thing you see are the big grain elevators. And they're governed by a village board. They don't have the mayor and city council. They have a village board who appoint a planning and zoning commission who are volunteers from the community. And so the whole community is really based on volunteers, and they, in this case, they relied on information that they got from the developers and their attorney, and made the best decision they could that an ethanol plant for them was really a great idea because it's surrounded by cornfields. They have the grain elevator there, they have the feedlot there. And so it really fit with being an agricultural community. And, they have their school, it's Friday night football and, a parade in the summer. And it's really a small town feel right outside of Omaha.
Okay, thank you. Take us back, Janice, to 2002, when this plant was going to be built, right? And I guess based on what you've just described, talk about the community, especially the benefits. What were people looking forward to the most when this was all coming into existence?
Yeah, so most people in these small communities either work on farms around or they work in Omaha. And small communities are always looking for, manufacturing or someone, an employer to come in and provide jobs and then to provide another base of tax revenue for the city to build and grow. So an ethanol plant for me made a lot of sense because they have a lot of corn around there. They need the jobs. And this one, when it was first built, it was to be a closed loop system. It worked with they were going to take the manure from the feedlot and use it to produce methane to fire up the plant. It was really going to have a lot of benefit for me for a lot of reasons.
Okay, and then in 2012, the company notifies Environmental Quality that they're going to use, or they are using, treated seed corn, right? So what is that and what happened next?
So when the NDEQ at that time got the application for the permit for them to reopen in 2012, they noted on the permit that they were going to use this treated seed corn, and NDE or DEQ at that time didn't think that that was enough of a change to require a public hearing or any red flags on the permit. So they went ahead and reviewed the permit. What I'm told from people who were on the planning commission at that time, there was no mention to the city of Meade that there would be using treated seed corn in this process.
Okay, so let's fast forward to 2015, right? The plant reopens, but then things go downhill from there. Talk a little bit about that, Janice, for those who weren't totally tuned in at that time.
So I'll just say that I don't live in Meade, but friends of mine who live up there say that starting in 2015, they started noticing terrible odors. And that was the biggest thing from the plant. And they filed complaints with the NDEQ. They, tried to get more investigation about what that smell was. And then when they started spreading the wet cake, should have been distiller's grain, but it was wet cake because it was contaminated with pesticides. Then, a few animals got sick. And I think that's when Dr. Lusmart started noticing that the bees were having some catastrophic effects.
Yes, and in fact, Judy was one of the first to notice these negative effects. And thank you, Janice, for bringing us up to speed there. Tell us, Dr. Lusmart, about these bees.
Yeah, so I started my position kind of in 2015, 2016, and at the Department of Entomology, my area of expertise is in bee health. And so I'm looking at different reasons why honeybees would decline in our state as well as kind of in neighboring states, and what are these challenges. And when I started putting bees just at this location, I could not keep them alive. Year after year, they would just characteristically just die outside the hive. There would be a lot of these adult bees just kind of falling out and exhibiting symptoms like they were being acutely poisoned by pesticides. So we spent several years working at the Eastern Nebraska Research and Extension Center, NREC site. This is in Meade, Nebraska. It's a large research area, so we had a number of different locations where we were placing bees, and they were all dying. So ruling out these on-farm practices, the types of chemicals that they were using, we were able to determine that it wasn't anything happening on the site itself. So that's when we started to contact the state agencies and EPA to help find out why these bees are dying. We found plants on the site that were really contaminated, just had really elevated levels of pesticides, such high levels that I actually thought it was a chemical spill or an accident, a laboratory confusion. So we did take those samples and confirm those results in another laboratory. And that's when we really decided that there's a concern with the water. Something is in the waterways where these plants are picking it up, or in the soil. Something is happening not on the farmland, but outside of that farmland. And that's what led us to contacting EPA and NDA and NDEE. And I think with the bee die-offs, these colonies are anywhere from 1 to 3 miles away from the site. So that was really when the state officials had really just realized that the problems weren't concentrated on the site. They were dealing with violations on the site, complaints of smells and odors, but most of that was concentrated right there on the facility. So when the bee die-offs became kind of highlighted, the concern then moved to where are these pesticides going? What pesticides? Are they showing up in the air, the soil, the plants, the water, and how far are they moving off the site? So that's what really started this effort to look at what is happening.
I wanted to ask you, when you sounded the alarm, I just want to back up though. I can't even imagine, going through what you're going through, seeing what you're seeing, and really starting to kind of piece this all together. Mm-hmm. At what point did you feel like, okay, I'm confident, I need to go to somebody about this?
When we started to rule out all the other options, there are a number of stressors that can cause colonies to die, from mismanagement, malnutrition, pesticides, pests and pathogens. There's a suite of stressors that bee colonies are facing. So when we started to rule out all of the things that normally go wrong, we started to need to go and look at explanations that were uncommon. And that's what led us to kind of seek help from the state and the federal agencies.
So then in 2021, the state files a lawsuit. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about not only what specifically was going on at that time, but what really ultimately led to that.
I think it was the public awareness. I think once the journalists and the media picked up on the story and really kind of reported about the bee losses, the catastrophe, the concerns, the environmental concerns, and the public concerns. That's when the public pressure kind of, I think, put a light on the state officials. And I don't know the discussions internally of what led to it, but it seemed like for a number of years these violations were ongoing, and it wasn't until there was kind of public awareness that maybe that might have led them to take quicker action.
We want viewers to know, and thank you for that, we did reach out to Jim Macy, who's the director of the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy, inviting him to join us on this program to give that perspective that you were just alluding to. We did hear back from the office. They said that he would not be able to do that because of the lawsuit that was pending. So, Ellie, I want to go to you and talk a little bit about, okay, so we're up now to 2021, talking about these concerns that Dr. Wismart has just mentioned here. Now, the College of Public Health, UNMC, brought into this, and you are spearheading that whole effort. So talk about how you were notified and this all came into play.
Well, we weren't exactly notified. There was the big newspaper article in The Guardian from England, and then that spurred, led to other news articles about this. And the leadership at the College of Public Health, and also right about in February of 21, there was this huge, it was very cold, if you can remember, just bitter cold, and a huge metal container at Alt-N broke, and all of this sludgy, 4 million gallons of sludge from here started pouring out, and in fact went into ditches nearby, and then that led it into a couple of streams nearby, and it was NDEE eventually found that it had gone 4.5 miles down a couple of these streams that go off to the southeast, or creeks that go off to the southeast. So when we discovered and when we really saw all of this information about the people in Meade being upset about health problems that they associated with this, and the odor and this damage to the environment, we said this is a public health problem, and we need to do something about it, and to assess and evaluate the damage that is going on here. And that's when we got a wonderful gift from the Claire M. Hubbard Foundation to get us started in April of 2021. And we started working with Judy Wu-Smart and Liz Van Wormer and Shannon Bartout Hunt and Dan Snow from UNL, and then Jesse Bell and I from the College of Public Health, doing various types of studies. They're looking at water, they're looking at soil, they're looking at small animals and insects and plants. And then those of us in the College of Public Health put together a survey and have surveyed we sent it out to 1,000 households around within a 6-mile radius of the plant, and almost half of the people responded, completed the survey about what health problems did they think they were having related to the contamination at Mead, and what did they want to see done about it. And we just actually that survey just went out this past spring, and it's now complete, and we're analyzing the results of it. But so those are the first things we've done. The water in these couple of creeks was sampled and analyzed for the alt-N contaminants, the insecticides and the fungicides that are used there, that coat the seeds that were used there for ethanol extraction, and so the creeks were sampled monthly during 2021, and that's now started up again here in 2022. We're continuing with that with other studies, and the other piece of this that we're putting together now is to set up a medical registry, so open to really anybody more or less in Saunders County or who's worked there, so that because we're hoping that will go for at least 10 years, because there may be health problems that don't show up right away, and we need to be able to track people so that we can find out if there are additional health problems coming from exposure to the alt-N contaminants. And we don't know the answer to that, but we need to find out. And so that's the work that we're doing, and we did get $1 million worth of federal funding from the state legislature this spring, and we have that money now, and we're just beginning to get organized to continue and expand the work that we did last year, with the faculty actually acting as volunteers, I want to say that, and to get this work done. So we think it's important for the people who live in that area or work in that area, or have had this the wet cake spread on their farms, that they have the ability to find out if there are health risks to this, and what it might have done to them, and also to their environment. We're also concerned about how this is going down, particularly Johnson Creek, which leads into the Platte River.
This is a pretty big undertaking, to say the least. And you are spearheading. I heard you use a word that I am a huge fan of, and that's collaboration, right? Good that you have all these different walks of life coming together. Talk about what it has been like, just for those of us on the outside looking in, to actually not only put this team together, but to keep this process moving forward, Ellie.
Well, I think each of the different faculty members involved from UNL, UNMC, and also Creighton University are all experts in their own field. And they have been, as I said, working as volunteers, planning their own parts of these projects according to what is their area of expertise, using our funding for supplies and for analysis and various things that you just have to spend money on to do this kind of research. And then we've gotten together periodically to discuss our results and as we got them, or our plans in the future. And so I would say that's the way it's been organized up to this point, because everybody was really a volunteer doing what they could for the situation. Now that we have funding that will enable all of us to work in a more structured way on this, we will be doing that. We're just now setting that up. We just now got the funding. And so we'll be just getting a little more organized and more, and because we need to be very accountable that we're with what we're doing and what we're finding and how we're communicating it to the public.
Well, let's talk about how you're communicating it. You recently held a press conference. I can't even imagine what that was like to...
A town hall.
A town hall to
yes.
put together, right? But you have to, communicate in a way, right, that people are going to be open to that message. How do you even begin to formulate a plan to get in front of people with a topic such as this, Ellie?
Well, we knew this was our second town hall. We had a previous town hall meeting about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, and we knew that people were very concerned about this, and we also knew that people wanted to know about what we were finding. And so we got a really good reception there in Mead. About half a dozen people met with me, and they picked a venue, they picked a date that was going to work for them, and then we agreed to that, and because we wanted to have as many people there as possible. And then we organized who was going to talk, and pretty much gave people free rein to hopefully talk for about 10 minutes about what they were doing, and we put all that together, and then gave the townspeople a chance to ask questions. Well, they were asking questions all the way along through the presentations, and then a chance to discuss it among themselves, and that was kind of the evening.
So one of the biggest questions, obviously, that is coming out of all of this, especially for those people who are living closest to home, how concerned should they be at this point about their health, about anything to do with not just themselves, their neighbors, the community, the village in general? How would you respond to that?
They certainly need to be concerned. We do not know yet whether living so close to this facility, which still has approximately 84,000 tons of highly contaminated wet cake and 150 million gallons of highly contaminated wastewater sitting there. So we do not know yet whether this has actually affected anyone's physical health. We're gathering that information as we speak. I think there's also concern about the environment, particularly along the two creeks where these compounds are going, are traveling down, and how far they're traveling down these creeks, and how long they will last. That's really all I can say at the moment. I don't want to say that we know. Those are the creeks were there. The Johnson Creek is the one in green. And you can see along there the places where they've sampled, and that's going to be extended further down, and it runs into the Platte River. We don't know yet, but we're determined to find out.
Dr. Woosmart, lesson to be learned in everything, right? What lessons have you learned?
Well, when we started seeing these bees dying off, the messaging, the communication, the relevance messaging really had to be broader than the bees. Bees are just a bioindicator that there's something wrong in the system. And so I think the lesson learned here is collaboration, the word of the day. It's really critical for us to get more expertise, agencies, teams that have the resources, the support, or the framework to do this type of long-term monitoring. We see that there really does need, that there needs to be a broader approach to science, to looking at these questions. And a lot of times we say this is a one health research effort because, that's the health of the environment, the humans and wildlife are all interconnected. And it's particularly true in this case. The bees are just indicating that there's something wrong. But we don't know where it is, and we don't know how, and we don't know who's at highest risk. So we have to take this environmental approach to find out where these chemicals are, if they're in the air, the water, the soil, the plants, and where those hot spots are before we can even inform the communities that they're at risk, or which animals would be at highest risk that we need to then target our research approach. So we're at the very very beginning stages of our research and just trying to figure out what's the spread. Where have they gone when they flow down these waterways? What is the rate of movement of these compounds when you put it on the soil or when you land apply the solid or the water to these farms? Do they stay on the farms or do they move out of the farms, and how far away? So there's a lot of questions to be learned, and I think for me the lessons is that it's horrible, this unprecedented example of this disaster pollution, the systemic pesticides. I think people forget that these aren't just normal chemicals. These are chemicals that are highly mobile in water, and so they're easily picked up by plants, and they're easily moved into trees and the food systems, potentially the cropping systems, or the wildflowers. That's where the bees are picking it up. So it does require a lot of people, definitely more than we even have at present. We have a huge, impressive team, but we could probably call up, a dozen more experts to address some of these concerns.
We're talking about the Alt-N crisis in Mead today, and I think if nothing else, our viewers know that there are not only people on this thing, right, but experts, and they're collaborating to try to get this thing figured out and to try to help one another.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank our guests and Janice Molhoff, who joined us via Zoom as well, for being here today. I want to thank those people who are working behind the scenes. I want to go to a graphic for folks wanting more information. Sierra Club Nebraska chapter, there's the website, Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy. Not only is there a website there, but there is also a phone number for anybody who has additional questions. And of course, I want to thank all of you for watching. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at nebraskapublicmedia.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.